Churches don't die because of a lack of vision. They die because of lack of ownership. We don't need to be a critic. We need to be a builder. Leaders solve problems. Passive people watch them happen. Passive leaders are the worst leaders. They sit at the table, nod their heads, but never contribute anything of value. An opinion without action is just noise. Because again, you can't just speak up without stepping up. The future of your church is not determined by how much vision you have, but by how many problems you're willing to solve. The greatest leaders aren't the most gifted or the talented. They're the ones who take responsibility. Slow solutions are just excuses in disguise. The best leaders don't wait for a perfect time. They move fast and figure it out as they go. Well, hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Conversations. Really excited to jump into this week's topic. Today we're talking about something that will determine whether or not you actually make an impact in your sphere of influence, whether that be church, your job, your team, your family. I truly believe that this is going to be a subject, to be honest, that will change the trajectory of your life. Really want to talk to church leaders today. Obviously, this does apply to everybody, but from my context, a lot of the people I talk to would be church leaders. So here's the reality. A church is full of people who love to point out problems, but do nothing about them. Leaders don't just identify issues, they fix them. You want to be trusted, start solving problems. You want to be a leader, step in the gap. In church planning and leadership and ministry, if you're waiting on someone else to invite you to take responsibility, you're already behind. So today I want to talk to you about being the solution. I'll give you a couple thoughts that I truly believe will change the way people view you as a leader, as a person, as an individual. And again, I'm just submitting these to you. These are going to be some truths that I believe over my experience of leading in the church, building teams for the last 10 years of my life. Right now we oversee a lot of directors and leaders and volunteers. And it's just our context and it's just our story. So again, I'm just submitting these to you. And number one, the church doesn't need more critics. It needs builders. Churches don't die because of a lack of vision. They die because of lack of ownership. And we're going to talk about this over and over and over again, but leadership is not a spectator sport. If you're in the room where decisions are being made, speak up. If you see something that needs to change, step up. So those are your two steps right there. Speak up and step up. And you can't do one without the other. You got to be able to articulate what's wrong, articulate solutions, but then also continue to double down and step up. Actually fill in the gaps. You will never build anything significant if your default mode is criticism instead of contribution. Again, the church doesn't need more critics. The church doesn't need more negative Nancy's or people who have their opinions about it on social media but don't do anything about it. That's literally the definition of a critic. A critic, a movie critic, critiques movies but has never acted. A food reviewer has never potentially worked in the restaurant. So for us, we don't need to be a critic, we need to be a builder. And by the way, the easiest way to understand whether or not of your trajectory as an individual, but also as your team, is what do people talk about? And we know this, the children of Israel. They spent a whole generation complaining. And then their kids get in the promised land. What do? They start complaining. So we don't want to hand off this to other people. Because again, if you want to build something significant, don't have your default mode be criticism, be contribution. So for me, I'm not speaking to something that I'm not willing to own. I'm not speaking to something that I'm not either willing to step up or to build somebody up into that. So here's just a hard truth for you. If you only see problems but never bring solutions, you're just dead weight to the mission. The church does not need more opinions. It needs people with answers. We got to step into this. We got to step into being a builder. We're building the vision, not critiquing the vision. Second thought, leaders solve problems. Passive people watch them happen. Passive leaders are the worst leaders. They sit at the table, nod their heads, but never contribute anything of value. An opinion without action is just noise. Because again, you can't just speak up without stepping up. You got to be able to do both. The people who are the most vocal about what's wrong are usually the least involved in fixing it. Why? It's easy to critique something else that I'm not willing to own. That's it. That's easy. It takes hard work to actually step in and solve problems. You cannot lead from the sidelines in the church. You have to get in the game. Again, an opinion without action is just noise. Don't be a passive leader. Passive leaders, again, are the worst. They're the people who sit at the table and nod their head, they take notes, but they don't do anything about it. You got to take action. The quality of your leaders are how quickly they can respond to challenge. Does it take a week for them to solve something or a day to solve something? Does it take 6 months for them to ideate something and execute it? Or does it take 6 days? That's the quality of team you have based on the response rate. If you always have an excuse for why something can't be done, you're not a leader, you're a spectator. And we don't need more spectators. Christianity is not a spectator sport. It's a real game with real plays. There's real people who are here to serve, who are here to make a difference and help call the greatness out of them. And I would just go to say, leadership isn't a spectator sport. I can't spectate someone's life and influence it at the same time. I have to be involved in their life. I have to be integrated with them. So I'm not going to be a passive leader. Passive leaders just sit at the table and nod their heads, but they don't do anything about it. An opinion without action is just noise. Third thought, church planning is just problem solving on repeat. Been doing church planning since I was 18 years old. You think church planning is about preaching? No. It's about figuring out how to do church with no money, no building, and no guarantee people are going to continue to follow you. If you have a high capacity for problem solving, if you don't have a high capacity for problem solving, you're probably not called to plant a church. Why? Because it isn't going to build a team. Preaching isn't going to build a leader. Preaching equips the saints. Like Ephesians 4, it's really our primary focus as a leader is to equip the saints, equip the leaders in your church to lead people. So technically, you're leading leaders who lead leaders. That's the function of a church plant. And that's the function of a pastor who wants to build something, is building people who build people. The future of your church is not determined by how much vision you have, but by how many problems you're willing to solve. It's a continual loop. No systems, you gotta build them. No volunteers, you gotta recruit them. No momentum, you have to create it. There has to be a sense of problem solving, because that's all it is. Every single day, that's my life, is problem solving. And it doesn't look the same. Every single day looks different. But it really doesn't if you think about the concept of there's a problem, you need to solve it. There's an idea, you need to execute it. There's no systems, you need to build them. There's no momentum, you need to create it. There's always this demand for us and our attention and our time. And for me, and I'm submitting to you, it's just the same thing over and over and over again, no matter how big it gets or how swollen it feels, because potentially it's not big, it's just swollen. It's you figuring out how to do church with, again, the things that weren't guaranteed, but are absolutely the principles of God, that you can stand on the promises of God, that you know the gates of hell won't prevail. You know that Jesus is building his church. You know that he is your provider. Those are principles and things that you can stand on. You can stand on business that he's building his church with you or without you. You are replaceable, but he also has called you to be the solution to the thing. So if he's called you to plant a church, what he's doing is he's calling you to solve problems. Again, I'll read this one and we'll move on. The future of your church is not determined by how much vision you have, but how many problems you're willing to solve. Number 4, if you see the problem, own the problem. If you see something, say something. Stop assuming someone else is going to take care of it. If God showed it to you, it might be because he wants you to fix it. To be honest, a lot of the times, the things you are most frustrated at in your church, it's literally because God highlighted you to solve those things. So if there's an engagement problem, solve it. If there's an attendance problem, solve it. The greatest leaders aren't the most gifted or the talented. They're the ones who take responsibility. There's a difference between having responsibility and taking responsibility. Mediocre leaders have responsibility. You just give it to them. They have it. They have responsibilities. The greatest leaders take responsibility. They take initiative of solving problems. Because why? They understand this principle. The things that I see is because God highlighted them to me. Now, one promotes the guy who just talks about problems. The people who get trusted with more are the ones who take initiative. So speak up and step up. You don't need permission to make things better. Stop waiting to be asked and start taking ownership. Again, if you see something, say something, but then also step up into it. The worst thing you can do is assume that somebody's going to solve the problems that you see. You are literally there. God brought you to your church so that you could solve the problems you see, not just be critical about the things. So if you see the problems, own the problems and continue to build solutions. Number 5, bring solutions, not just observations. It is so easy to say, this isn't working. It takes leadership to say, here's how we can fix it. It's very obvious, by the way. The most important story that is being told is the one that you actually believe. And again, I've been all around a lot of church leaders, a lot of people in the church who tell themselves the story because they don't want to be honest with themselves. And you can't be honest with others until you can be honest with yourself. So it does start with, this is not working. There's something about this system, something about this structure that we have, something about this leader is not working. That doesn't mean that it is inherently a huge problem, but it's an observation. And again, you don't want to just stay there. You want to move to, and here's how we can fix it. That to me is an indication of quality leader. You're saying, here's how we can fix it. Here's 3 ideas. The best team members don't just come with problems, they come with options and a plan. Come with a plan. The next meeting you hop on in your church, instead of bringing up problems, show a plan. Put a document together that says, here's 6 ideas on how to blank. Your ability to lead is directly tied to your ability to solve problems. That's all it is. You solving problems is an equal sign to your leadership. Because the leaders who rise in leadership are not the ones who point out gaps, they're the ones who step in them. They step into the gaps. They don't just point out gaps, they step into them. The people who step into the gaps are the people who rise up. So bring solutions, not just observations. It's so easy to observe something. It's another thing to step into them. Slow solutions are just excuses in disguise. Number 6. I want to say that one again. Slow solutions are just excuses in disguise. The best leaders don't wait for a perfect time. They move fast and figure it out as they go. The longer you wait to solve a problem, the bigger it becomes. So the best leaders in the world don't wait for the right time. That has never worked in any other translation. Well, once I get my stuff together, then I'm going to follow Jesus. You're not going to ever get yourself together. That's the point. The testament, again, of your leadership is how quickly you can move and figure it out as you go. That's just honestly the testament and story of my life. I've never had everything figured out. Then I stepped in the position, or then I stepped in authority, or then the leader called me out and called me up. I was just available. I stepped into it. And then as I was continuing my journey, I would figure it out through trial and error. I tried something, it didn't work. I tried something, it did work. Cool. I'm going to document that and just carry it on with my life. Chew the meat, spit out the bones. That's leadership. So this slow solutions, we don't want to be slow. Because again, there's real lives attached to this. There's real people attached to this. There's real marriages attached to this. There's real stories being written about the narrative of our life. And I don't want to be a person who is just being passive and waiting and slow. Because again, slow solutions are just excuses in disguise. If you need weeks to think about something simple, you're just afraid to take action. That's the honest truth. Most of the time, in my experience, the leaders who take a long time about a decision, they already have the decision, They're just fearful of people's response to that decision. They think that there's going to be rejection. They think there's going to be somebody who leaves. There's going to be somebody who's offended. So they're trying to balance the emotions of somebody and the vision that they have. So don't be afraid to take action, because leaders can smell that out. Leaders can smell timidity and fear from a mile away. And if you want to have quality leaders, you got to be quick to make decisions. You don't need more time to make a decision. You need more courage to act. So a lot of times we're asking God for clarity or wisdom. He's giving you clarity and wisdom. You're just not praying for courage. You're not praying for healing of the people pleaser wounded in you, or the offense you might be carrying, or the bitterness you might be carrying. And a lot of times, again, we're just trying to please everybody, but in the midst of pleasing everybody, you please nobody. So if I was going to submit anything to you, is you don't need more time to make decisions. You just need more courage to act. Slow solutions are just excuses in disguise. The leaders who get trusted with more are the ones who solve problems. Want more responsibility in your job, want more responsibility in your company, your church, stop asking for it and start proving you can handle it. The people who are irreplaceable in ministry aren't the most talented. They're the ones who make things happen. They are change agents. They're a force of change when they enter a meeting, enter a conversation, enter a brainstorming session. They can make things happen. They can move something that an idea can turn into a document, and it can be executed very simply. A lot of my conversations with our leaders happen on Mondays and Tuesdays. In those conversations, there's really an expectation that we're going to take those conversations and apply it to that next Sunday. Why? That's 5 days. That's plenty of time to make little changes, 1% changes, but 1% on the compound effect over 52 weeks. We're a whole different team. We're a whole different leadership team. We're a whole different group. We're a whole different church. Because why? We're just getting a little bit better. We're not trying to solve everything. We're just trying to answer the question, what's most important right now, and how can I make this happen? So if you want influence, the fastest way for you to get influence in your church is to consistently solve problems. If your pastor can't trust you to fix small problems, why would they ever trust you with something bigger? If you want to be found faithful, found good and faithful with the little things, I promise you, it's just going to be a continual pattern of you doing that and being okay with not being seen, serving without being seen, being submitted not to preferences but to vision. These are just practical things that, again, you want more, steward what you have and walk into every room like an owner, not a renter. Number 8, the church needs leaders, not managers. Managers maintain what already exists. Leaders build what doesn't. We're going to be builders, not maintainers. If you're waiting for a title before you take action, you don't deserve a title. The people who make the biggest impact in ministry aren't waiting for someone to tell them what to do. They see a need and they meet it. That's the Bible. Every single massive or micro decision or story or testimony in scriptures is all about somebody who isn't just waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. They see a need and they meet it. The floor's dirty, mop it. If there's garbage on the floor, pick it up. If somebody needs to get a coffee, get coffee with them. If somebody needs prayer, pray for them. Because again, I'm not trying to maintain. I'm trying to build. I'm not trying to babysit, I'm trying to build. On having good practices, but actually winning games. The leaders that you need in your life are not managers. I'm not managing people. I'm not managing planning center. I'm not managing a roster of people. I'm building people. I'm building systems. I'm building strategies. I'm building vision. That's what the leaders do. The church is not built by people who do what they're told. It's built by people who see what's needed and makes it happen. You want to build a healthy church. You want to build an organization. Stop waiting for just being told what to do. It's you continually understand that you need to see what needs to happen and make it happen. See the problems, be the solution. Your church does not need more managers. Managing a budget, managing a roster of people, managing relationships. Build them, lead them, steward them, multiply them. Multipliers versus subtractors, to be honest, are people who understand this principle. Everything that is in my life is not mine, but I'm going to live as if it is. The people in my life are not mine, they're God's. The church is not mine, it's God's. But I'm going to live as if it's mine, and I'm going to build people as if I'm responsible for them. I'm responsible for the church. I'm responsible for the people who build the church. And at the end of the day, when I put my head to the pillow, I'm going to ask myself, who did I invest in today? Not what did I manage today? So stop waiting, stop complaining, stop hesitating. There cannot be a level of passivity in your life. You need to accept the fact that the testament, the quality of your leadership is how quickly can you respond. And by the way, there's a difference between just listening to somebody tell you what to do and you doing it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying stop waiting. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for vision. Stop waiting for clarity. Every leader's least favorite question, by the way, is could you give me clarity on this? Complain. If you're complaining about the things that you're not willing to solve, you are a hindrance to the vision. You are a hindrance to your team's chemistry and health. And then stop hesitating. Step into it. Be confident. Have courage because God's called you to do it. If He's called you to do it, by the way, that means you can step into it with faith, with boldness. God called me to do it. I didn't call myself to do it. If I called myself to do something, it potentially wouldn't be this. So if God called me to do it, I know that He's got me. I have backing by God and authority. So if you see a problem, it's yours to fix. What if in 6 months you could have the promotion? You could have the position that you've been trying to manipulate your way into anyways. If you just solved problems every day. If you solved one problem every single day, think about 365 problems being solved over the course of the year. Your team would not be the same. You would not be the same. Your position would not be the same. Your pay would not be the same. Because you're an agent of change. And that to me is people that we cannot afford to lose. Cannot afford to lose the people who reproduce themselves. Cannot afford to lose the people who solve problems and ideate and execute. The church does not need more passive leaders. It needs builders. There's a difference between building a home and buying a home and renting a home. We need people who are going to build the home, and we're going to be architects. We're going to be interior designers. We're going to be the people who build homes, and we build the church. We don't just wait. We don't just wait for another person to show up. We don't just wait for more people to come to our church or more people added to our team before we build the thing that we know God's called us to do. So I'm going to reread these. I'm going to submit these to you. You need to be the solution. The church does not need more critics. It needs builders. Churches do not die because of a lack of vision. Everybody's got vision in 2025. Everybody's got vision. Vision's great. Execution is hard. It needs builders. The church doesn't need more critics. It needs builders. And churches don't die because of a lack of vision. They die because of a lack of ownership. Your leadership journey is not a spectator sport. You will never build anything significant if your default mode is criticism instead of contribution. Number 2, leaders solve problems. Passive people watch them happen. An opinion without action is just noise. Number 3, church planning is just problem solving on repeat. You think church planning is about preaching? Nope. It's all about figuring out how to do church with no money, no billing, and no guarantee that people show up. You don't have systems? Build them. You don't have volunteers? Recruit them. You don't have momentum? Create it. And if you see the problem, own the problem. Stop assuming someone else is going to take care of it. God showed it to you. It might be because He wants you to fix it. Bring solutions, not observations. It's easy to say, this isn't working. It takes a leader to say, here's how to fix it. Slow solutions are just excuses in disguise. The best leaders don't wait for a perfect time. They move and they figure it out. Number 7, the leaders who get trusted with more are the ones who solve problems. The people who are irreplaceable in ministry aren't the most talented. They're the ones who make things happen. And number 8, the church needs leaders, not managers. Managers maintain, leaders build. So if you ponder and create margin in your life to think about these 8 principles of solving problems, I promise you, over the course of your life, you're going to realize that I directly am attached to the solutions I'm providing. My leadership trajectory, my positional trajectory, honestly, my influence is constantly attached to how quickly can I solve problems and how quickly can I reproduce that to others. Instead of people coming to me with problems, come to me with tested principles and ideas. We can innovate and make those better. So this episode challenge you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. If you're serious about leading, start solving problems today. Let's go build a church. I'll see you next week.